Proud World University student. I call myself a student still because education never ends, and it's really amazing since when I got enrolled in the university, I was struggling actually with my study because coming up from a place which has been quite, conflicts. There's a lot of conflicts in northern Uganda. It was hard for me to leave my job to go and study. So when I looked around, I was admitted at Makerere. I couldn't go because of that. I was cut off completely. But when I got to World University, it never remained the same again. A lot of things changed. I started studying, and I had opportunity to do my study at my time. And that was really amazing because it gave me room for me to continue my other life, to do my work. I had the opportunity to explore and study wide. It was not just limiting me in a way, so I was pretty happy. I think what I liked so much, which I felt, it was my inspiration when I was a little boy, is the component of leadership. I was able to read a number of books through World University. I got so interested in leadership development, and I think with the inspirations I got in so many ways, I got to meet my expectations from World University. I realized that my leadership potential was quite visible, but I needed just a bit of improving here and then. And it worked so well with my study at World University, and also meeting and talking quite a lot with my professors and lecturers and all those things. It was quite easy. And also, most importantly, the university exposed me to students from diverse experiences. There were students who were working with the government premises, others were in the civil society world, and that was quite rich because I would, have opportunity to experience, to have all sorts of ideas I wanted to. So it was quite, wide. It was so diversified that I was not limited in a way. So I think World University gave me hope that I can take leadership. I didn't have so much business mind until when I completed the university, and I started knowing that, okay, maybe in my other life, much as I'm trying to take leadership role in the world, I also need to take leadership role also in myself. So I'm now trying to do leadership at two levels, at a personal level and then at a public level.
Okay, good.
Yeah. It was a blessing being part of the World University, education. It helped me so much on how to transform my society. I learned a lot, a full package of community commitments, and this is good because much as I was doing my other studies, I felt I was deeply connected to my community and never took me away from my community. I sustained that community connections even when I was doing my studies.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
And so what have you done with what you learned?
Since then, I formed a non-profit youth organization called African Youth Initiative Network. It was a grassroots initiative, a motivation that I generated, or I improved on it when I got to World University, and was purposely to take on leadership role that builds peace in the society, and with more focus on the conflict-affected northern Uganda, where I was born and raised, and had these feelings that when and how can peace come in? I realized it was about leadership. So I've been able to generate momentum from among my peers, young generations. And as I talk now, we are leading at a level that has reached even international status. The leadership that has brought on board, or that has brought down to the community, the involvement of the Secretary General of the United Nations, the President of Uganda. When we did organize the War Victims Day football match last year in Kampala, we called them down to come and connect and to build the solidarity between the top leadership and the community. So it's the leadership experience, the leadership knowledge I gained from the World University that helped me took such roles in shaping and building confidence and network between the rich, the poor, the victims and the perpetrators, as well as the, reconciling the society. That's really key.
So who are some of the people that you've actually given talks to?
Oh, well, it's interesting. I have spoken at the United Nations General Assembly. I spoke during the ICC review conference over. I have spoken to hundreds of Rotarians in the United States in over 500 gatherings, and I spoke to universities across Europe, in America, within Africa. My last speech, I was at Oxford inside business school at Tufts University. And when I was receiving my award as being the outstanding African young leaders for 2011. Let me say that. Yeah, luckily because of my leadership role that I took and I implemented in my community, I was nominated for Archbishop Desmond Tutu's Young African Leaders Award for 2011. And I was the only Ugandan youth who won that. Reasons being because I took my leadership role and in a very practical way, I'm engaged in the community. So I received this award. It's a prestigious award by Archbishop Desmond Tutu, which is always rare, and I'm very proud to do that because it connected me in so many ways. I met teams and teams of professors from around the world. I was able to sign the guest book at Rhodes University in the UK, which has been signed by famous people like Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, presidents, and I was very lucky that I'm amongst the 150 people who have signed that book since 1933.
Wow.
Right, yes, yes.
So that's brilliant. So who are some of the most important people that you've spoken to and met?
Yeah, I was lucky to be invited for NATO summit in 2010 in Lisbon. And in NATO summit I met lots of presidents, world presidents, NATO member states presidents. I met with Barack Obama. I spoke to him. I spoke to Secretary General Ban Ki-moon like 3 times in a year, and that's quite amazing. Meeting top leaders like the Secretary General of NATO, I met a number of African presidents as well, and top leadership in the Congress. I was in the US, I visited Senate. I met with Senator Fengel, who has been very outspoken about Africa, and I met a number of top leadership within Africa and beyond.
Okay. Yeah. And do you think that some of the things you've said to Ban Ki-moon and others has actually had an impact?
A lot, because when Ban Ki-moon during the NATO summit was stressing a lot his commitment to Africa, and in NATO I was invited because of my engagement, practical engagement in peace building in Africa, and my message was quite key. And when I asked him, said, considering how NATO has been a little bit successful providing security across NATO member states, would Ban Ki-moon, as a Secretary General, condone NATO should a situation like what happened in Rwanda in 1994 happens in Africa today? He struggled a lot to answer that because it was quite a politically sensitive question, but in so many ways, my effort, my negotiation was, how do we engage in partnership? Alliances beyond military alliances. Let's also engage in political alliances, working together the NATO member states on building alliances beyond military in Africa. And then it was my question. When I asked that question, he struggled a lot to answer it. Little did I know that shortly, within weeks, the situation was rising up in Ivory Coast. And then I saw the message sent to the participant with the subject that Victor's question is guiding Ban Ki-moon, because he chose to say Laurent Gbagbo must go because he had lost the election, and the United Nations would not give an opportunity for him to stay, and they worked so much for that. And also, I think the world has to realize that it's not about calling Africa is meant for Africans. No, it's about how do we Africans look at our former colonies as they are partners in development. They are not our enemies, and we are not even planning to be enemies either. But looking at them, instead of blaming the history, how do we avoid the new partnership based on the history already had? So it makes sense if the world, like most of Africa, realize that the former colonies are their development partners as of now, and making an effort like such interventions. There are interventions that are necessary. The world must not stand and watch when African leaders are brutalizing their own citizens. I think the world, under the United Nations, should realize that the world cares for everybody. I think that's why it's key when sometimes the United Nations chooses to take a bold step and intervene in a situation like in Africa, where democracy is a big question. So if that one is done repeatedly, it will build a culture where people will respect one another.
Tell me also, so after you studied with World University of Leadership, have you got other universities recognizing your degree and offering you further programs?
Yeah, sure. As I talk now, I am applying to take a diplomacy course at Fletcher University in the US, at Harvard. So It's based on my degree at World University. That's helping me proceed on that. So, to many people, I would say, to many people, because their own thinking might undermine the university, it's not about which university you went to. It's about what is the outcome. What can you do after coming out of the university? You might be from the most prestigious university and you do nothing. It's about taking bold steps with the knowledge you have gained from the university to make a difference in the society, to the life of the people who need change. So I've been so proud of my degree I got from World University, because it's the field I've always been interested in. It's all about leadership that builds the society. It's a joint liability. If people are brought on board, leadership plays the role where society owns the process, and that's the leadership that we need. And that's the kind of leadership skills I got from World University. So I didn't need to. If I wanted to, I would have perhaps chosen to go to any university if I wanted to, but because I had no resources, I was also engaged in working and supporting my family. I had to choose to study at World University. It has never changed me, and it has never made me less. I think I am much better than some people who have been in the most prestigious university in the world. But I know World University to me is the most prestigious because it gave me the degree I wanted to do what I'm doing. Yes.
Thank you. Actually, the Chancellor of Macquarie University, Professor Kiganira, he was saying, I've looked at the materials of World University and it is not inferior to any of the best universities in the world.
And I can assure you, as it has been said elsewhere, the quality of the knowledge you have been receiving is not inferior to any that people have obtained from the most prestigious universities of the world.
And I was having another student who was coming up and who was saying, I actually have been looking at where to go, looking at Oxford, looking at a number of the other universities. None of them compare to World University in terms of the depth and the way the program is structured. What did you particularly like with the program?
I was lucky enough, after finishing my studies at World University, my degree at World University, I visited a number of universities around the world, from Cape Town University in South Africa, also Joburg University in South Africa as well. I went to a number of countries in Africa. I went to Harvard University in the United States. I went to Oxford. I was in Copenhagen University, and I've been to a number of New York universities and many other places. I think I pretty much found it like it might be environmentally different, but in terms of the packages of education, of the materials and all the things, I think what I was given from World University was enough to make me realize the leadership skills I wanted to get. So having been in those places, you know, it's not different in any way. It's not different. It's all about commitment. It's all about the quality output. You know, how we determine that based on the practicalities of what we do. To me, it's a different story, because when I gave speech last year to the graduate students at Fletcher University, in the United States, and then the question came: we are PhD students, and Victor is an undergraduate degree holder. So, what's the difference between us now, who are the PhD students, and then him who's an undergraduate degree holder? I said, well, for you, I see the difference clearly, because the difference is you are so educated, meanwhile I have so much learned. You have so much educated, you have studied, you have been to powerful schools, went through masters, and now doing PhDs, but I have had the degree that helped me learn how to take practical steps in my community, and in that process, because it engages me practically in the society, so I have learned more than you have learned. You have studied, you have read books more than I have done, but I have learned more than you have learned. So that's the only difference between the two of us. Yes.
Okay, great. So just in a few seconds, tell us about your scholarship to Harvard.
My scholarship to Harvard is based on my beliefs, not assumed aside, but my belief in potential, leadership potential. I pose a great potential to take leadership role at a high level in the future, maybe nationally or internationally. And there are people, upon learning what I went through, what I studied, having been a student at World University and doing leadership and development studies, building on that and building also my inspiration and my potential to take leadership role internationally, I'm getting a chance to go and study my master's. We initiated based on our history, where there's been a lot of war, and with the mission as to mobilize the youth and community participation in promoting peace and justice. And our work has been key on two thematic areas. One, on youth leadership development, and how do we inspire the generation of young leaders to take positive roles in transforming our society. Just like I did, I was never born and raised in a very poor family. I was born and raised in my family, poor family. But my going through and all that thing has never been the same again. And another ground we have been very involved in, which is on health and psychosocial rehabilitation, like reconstructive medical support to the victims who are shattered, who are abused as a result of war. So we provide reconstructive medical rehabilitation to war victims, and we are pretty much involved in youth leadership development, which I'm carrying forward the concept of leadership that changes the society. So to me, why we are corrupt in the society is because we have not appreciated the kind of leadership we have in place. But if the leadership is strong enough, it will make sure that leadership is accountable to its people as well.
So how many people have you helped?
To date, I would say we have helped over 1,500 victims who have received reconstructive plastic surgeries, the mutilation from the limbs, the amputations, the gunshots, many rape cases. We have helped thousands of them. We have provided psychosocial rehabilitation to people who are physically and psychologically tortured in thousands. And we have helped initiated over 150 youth organizations, community-based youth organizations. I think eventually my leadership at AYINET became a role model to many youth in the society, that it can work, it works. If you start small with a heart of love and care, with the interest to serve people, it will work. So we have so many innovative youth initiatives running now in their own clubs, groups, associations, and we help them in setting up their structure and taking leadership role. And what we do is like helping them take leadership role within their own system for their society change.
And just very quickly also, tell me a bit about your background as a child, being raised in an area where rebels were attacking people, and just briefly about your brother as well.
Okay. I was born and raised in a very poor family in northern Uganda. My village is called Abia. Abia is one of the hotspots where there's been all sorts of war. Having been born and raised in that community, I faced all that every child would face in such situation. I was born, I was raised in the IDP camp. I would say I'm one of the IDP camp products. I witnessed all sorts of human rights abuses, tortures, human sufferings, and all the things. I saw all sorts of contemplations as a result of those human sufferings. But that gave me more motivation, because growing up in a society where everything was not working in your favor, needed more creative thinking. I became a leader when I was a little boy, I would say, because I started taking leadership role by first of all saying, I am against the decision where children are being recruited as soldiers. So I openly opposed that. It was a communication that everyone must learn how to shoot guns, but I said, no, I will not learn to shoot guns because I don't believe in guns. I believe in taking responsibility. So peace building is the most powerful tool. So growing up in that society, it changed me for the right cause. I don't regret having been born in that society completely, because it has helped me see what so many of my friends who are born and raised in a poor families never saw, and they might not see. I'm seeing it in a way that it has changed my life, it has transformed my thinking. I don't look at a problem as something you can't overcome. To me, a problem is just a challenge you can move on and make a difference. So it's been a life, a very painful childhood with all the horrific sufferings and all those things, surviving every day, eating almost no meals, but still we moved on. And most incidentally was when my brother was abducted by the rebel of the Lord Resistance Army, who unfortunately he has never come back up to now. I presumably is dead or alive, but hope to see him someday soon. So it's been both challenging, but my community made me that sufferings, the poor community I was born, the life I lived in, I did become made me, because it helped shape my thinking. I think pretty much along the humanitarian ground. I think in terms of human services. I deliver in the society. I'm very practical. With my team, we work so well, and we're amazingly working to transform that society. Hopefully, we face difficult days ahead, but there is hope. It's just a matter of taking practical steps and building on our trust and belief that we will make it, and change will come definitely happen.
Fantastic. And just very quickly also, tell me about Hollywood. Has anyone from Hollywood taken interest in what you do?
Oh yeah, it's been interesting. I met quite a number of Hollywood stars. My first Hollywood star was a Ugandan-born American boxer, Kasim the Dream Ouma. He was supposed to come back to Uganda, and he had an issue with the government. Much as there was a lot of diplomatic negotiation, it reached a moment where they needed some practical negotiation, and I was part of that, and I coordinated his coming back home for the first time in over 10 years' time. So when he came, we went to visit people in northern Uganda, met children who were former child soldiers like him as well. That's like confidence building and hope raising. That was the beginning. And then shortly after that, I had few numbers of Hollywood stars who came in, may not be superstars, but the biggest one was Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage came to Uganda, and I was his host for 2 days. So it was interesting because based on his movie For the Lords of War, presenting this, the status of the children in armed conflicts, how dealings can impact on the society. He was nominated as the Goodwill Ambassador for the UN Office on Drugs and Crime. So it was through the Office of the UN Office on Drugs and Crime and the Trust Fund for the Victims that I got to know Nicolas Cage, because he wanted to come and meet with the victims, the child soldiers whom he acted in the movie. And he had never met them physically, but when he came here, they did not stop in Kampala, just went up north, and for 2 days kept him from media, everything. We worked together. He met so many people, and you could feel the connections. He was seeing the real life child soldiers which he acted about. So since then, it's been very supportive to the society as well, supporting the former child soldiers and then many other people in the society. So I'm such a great fan of Nicolas Cage. Yeah, he's one of the Hollywood stars that he came down here, and I'm glad that he was able to stay. He pulled himself down and stayed at that level with the people in the society.
That's great. And also tell us about Ban Ki-moon and Museveni playing soccer.
Oh yeah, yes. It's interesting how leadership can play a role. First of all, on the eve of the International Criminal Court Review Conference in Kampala, we're looking at how do we bring the community to be participants in the review process. And the answer was no, there was no option. We said, look, we will do something. We organized what we call the War Victims Day football game. This was to create an opportunity for the national and international leadership to come and show solidarity and mobilize support for the victims of armed conflict around the world.
So maybe, just rewind a little bit.
So you organized the soccer event?
Yeah, we organized the War Victims Day football match in Uganda on the eve of International Criminal Court. This was to create an opportunity for the international leadership and national leadership, because there were heads of missions, diplomats, and hundreds coming down to Kampala. We wanted to create an opportunity for them to meet and move shoulder to shoulder with people whom they're going to make issues about. They're going to make changes. They're going to make decisions about. They have been reading about victims who they have never met them, and said, let's create an opportunity. And then we organized a football match in Kampala at Mandela International Stadium. And we brought to Uganda thousands of war victims from Uganda, Darfur, DRC, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Somalia, and many other countries. We brought in thousands of the victims came down here. And then, interestingly, our motive was, how do we mobilize global support for the victims of war, not only Uganda, but around the world. And we are negotiating for other thing, which was, let there be a day declared in the international calendar to recognize the victims of war, because oftentimes we consider war heroes, but where does that state of heroism comes in? After creating enormous status of victims who are then there given as, they are recognized as war heroes. So we are saying this is a moment to bring on board, to recognize the victims of war. So when we invited the Secretary General of the United Nations, His Excellency Ban Ki-moon, to come and play soccer to show solidarity with the victims, and we invited the President of Uganda and also invited the President of Tanzania, who never turned up, and the Croatian president who was supposed to come to Uganda. He didn't play because he didn't come. But President Museveni from Uganda came together with the UN Secretary General, and this was the best ever, to see the top leaders, top international leaders coming down in their shirts, putting aside and putting on our jersey, written "No peace without justice," and putting AYINET and my organization, and with a clear message that there is justice wherever it is supposed to be. I remember when I was interviewed, who asked me, why did you choose football of all? Why not golf? Why not? I said, first of all, Africa is hosting the World Cup for the first time. And then secondly, in football pitch, everyone is equal in the eyes of the referee, just like us, everyone is equal in the eyes of the law. And that became the theme of the day. And that was our message of the day, that equality in front of the law, just like us in the eyes of the referee. So that came in, made it, when Museveni and Secretary General were playing, they were all equal. They played alongside the war victims from different countries, and they were all equal. And our message was, how do we mobilize the global leadership support towards the victims of human rights violations? And then said yes. They were really very clear. Museveni made a commitment and said, we are going to support victims. We cannot wait the perpetrators to be apprehended before we support the victims. Let's move on to support and save life before we lose all of them. And the Secretary General was so clear and said, look, the time has come for the world to move on to support the victims of war and also reduce all sorts of violences. We may not stop all, but we need to reduce the violence against humanity. And these were call to actions, very profound call to actions, which I did not build because of the leadership that started so small from the poor northern Uganda. They wouldn't have come, but because of that small leadership that has made it possible that people from all corners, all walks of life came down, and then they played shoulder to shoulder. This was really great. And we are very grateful to the President of Uganda, His Excellency Museveni, and the UN Secretary General, and all the state delegates who came from different countries. We are amazed. And most importantly, we are so grateful to the victims of war. They were the winners.
Yes, wonderful.